Here we are back at the DarkReading News Desk. Hi everybody. We are live at Black Hat USA, and guess what? We have reached the final interview of our day. We saved the best for last. I'm Brian Galuli. Social engineering is the oldest trick in the book, but it never gets out of style. For years now, phishing has been social engineers' favorite tool of choice, and our last guest for the day knows everything there is to know about phishing, and I mean P-H-I-S-H phishing, of course, and a lot more. He is the CEO and founder of KnowBe4. His name is Stu Sjouwerman. Stu, can you tell us a little bit about what KnowBe4 does? I know it's a little unique, but let's talk about that, and then I want to get into phishing and certainly into ransomware.
Okay.
Yeah.
What KnowBe4 does is what we like to call new school security awareness training, as opposed to old school. Old school, you get herded in the break room, kept awake with coffee and donuts,
right,
and you get exposed to death by PowerPoint.
Yep.
So that's old school. New school is a 3-step process. You do a baseline test, you find out what the phish-prone percentage of your employees actually is. Step 2, you train them online, on demand. Step 3, frequent simulated phishing attacks. And that actually gets the message across.
And you also, you told me about a unique thing you do about ransomware.
Yeah, people find us. We have this ransomware guarantee, which is if you're a KnowBe4 customer and you train and phish your employees on a regular basis, you get, essentially infected with ransomware. We pay for the ransomware, the Bitcoin.
Okay.
That's the ransomware guarantee. But very often people find out about us, they're not a customer, and they say, we're up the creek.
Help us.
All our files are encrypted. We need help. So in that case, we actually pay the ransomware for them and only charge the actual cost, but we do tell them, hey, you should train your users.
Do you call that the dummy tax by any chance?
No, we don't.
Okay, it's just ransomware payoff.
We call it helping people out.
Helping people out, okay. So let me ask you, what was the need in the market that you saw that helped you develop KnowBe4?
Well, my last company was an antivirus company. We built it. There was AV, anti-spyware, firewall, and we had a few million endpoints out there,
right,
and we still saw malware infections. So we kind of dug in and pulled the string and researched what is causing this. Well, it was social engineering.
Right.
So when I sold my last company, Sunbelt Software, I started this one knowing that there was a market that wasn't well served.
Right.
And that's why we did what we did.
So let's talk again about the ransomware concept. Why do you think that's becoming so prevalent?
Well, ransomware is the most successful criminal business model to date. Cybercrime is always looking for the fast buck with the least amount of risk.
Right.
And so you can steal 100,000 records and sell them on the black market, but that takes months. You can penetrate a hospital and lock all their 250 workstations, including their MRI and their X-ray machines, because they all run Windows.
Right.
And then you have an organization that is desperate and pushed back 50 years, and they're willing to pay now.
Yep. Yeah. And CEO fraud. Tell me about CEO fraud and how that connects with ransomware.
Well, CEO fraud is what is the FBI calls the business email compromise. And that happens through spoofing the email address of the CEO.
Right.
The way this works out, the bad guys have penetrated the network. They are lurking for months. They're waiting for the CEO to go on a trip, and then they come with, okay, from the CEO to the CFO or the controller with, hey, there's a strategic, important transaction I'm doing.
Right.
This is all hush-hush. I need you to transfer $300,000 to bank so-and-so.
Right.
And make sure this happens quickly. You will be called by an attorney about this in an hour.
Right.
And the controller or the CFO says, oh, okay. And out the money goes. to a US bank or an Asian bank, and it gets cashed pretty much instantly. If you don't get this within 24 hours, your money is gone.
Wow. Yeah. And that's a growing concern.
It is
I'm assuming.
rapidly
It's
growing.
very sophisticated too.
Yeah, there's different levels of CEO fraud.
Right.
There's different cyber mafias that are going after different markets, if you will. There's Nigerians who have climbed up in the food chain from the old Nigerian prince.
Yeah.
They are now doing CEO fraud for SMBs, but there is a higher level CEO fraud for enterprise, which is very sophisticated.
Yeah. Okay. What about new threats? What else are you coming across? What are some of the 2 or 3 biggest threats that you see moving forward over the next year or so?
Well, what we find out, first of all, what we have is what we call a fish alert button. This is a button that companies can download from our website for free. It's an MSI file, so they can just deploy this to Outlook. If an employee clicks on this link, this button, it gets sent to their incident response. Also, we can get a CC on it. So we see all these things that come in. We see what comes in through the filters, what makes it through the spam filters, through the gateway, through everything. Things that we see are double social engineering attacks. So in the body of the email, only text. Here's your invoice. Please remit within 30 days. Then there's a Word file attached. In the Word file is just another link. Link goes to a legit website. So antivirus doesn't catch this. There's no malware in the body. There's no malware in the attachment. And it's a double social engineering trick. The moment they click on the link, that site is compromised and their machine is compromised and they're in.
So
that's one.
That's one. Any others that
Ransomware is very rapidly becoming very sophisticated. There are strains now that infect not just your mapped drives but also your unmapped drives. They lock the whole workstation and they essentially lock the master boot record. This stuff is moving at a light speed, and the infection vector is still email. So it's the end user that opens the attachment that is your biggest risk.
So when a company comes to you and says, "We've been attacked. Our files are all encrypted. Help us pay them off."
Yes.
I'm simplifying it, but do you ever give them advice on how to approach this? For example, engage the threat actor first, see whether it's a bot, for instance, and they'll accept 1 Bitcoin instead of 40,000.
They are open to negotiation.
Yeah.
Especially when they ask for very high ransoms. You can get in touch with them and they will move their demands down a bit.
But you provide that kind of a service for those customers, like here's how you should approach this?
In special cases, yes.
Okay.
Normally speaking, this is either a workstation or a file server. And we just help them pay the ransom, get the decryptor, and start the decryption process so they are back in business.
What about malware, generally speaking? Anything happening in that space that you guys are hearing from customers, we need some help?
There are several different kinds of malware that antivirus just doesn't catch. One of them is called fileless malware. It just sits in memory, and AV just doesn't catch it. That's one. Usually the end user lets this stuff in, either through social engineering through email or through clicking on a malicious ad on, for instance, Huffington Post, wherever it lives. So the end user still is the weak link, and as long as you train the end user to make sure that they think before they click, you can drive down your infection percentage quite a bit.
So you mentioned social engineering and training the end user.
Yes.
What are 2 or 3 things that an IT manager can do to help guard against social engineering attacks?
Well, what we always say is you have to really start with weapons-grade backups. You have to back up, and test your restore to make sure that those backups really work, which they often don't.
Right.
Second, religiously patch, not just the OS, also third-party apps, and make sure that that whole network and your whole workstation is up to the very, very latest revisions. Top it off with new school security awareness training, and you become a much harder target, which means that the bad guys, you know, their time is money too. They will move on to the next target because you're just too hard to get.
And see, it's an interesting thing because every once in a while I'll ask, you know, what are some of the things that companies or their employees can do? And it's invariably something that's so simple. And you hear stats like, you know, a third party lets a company know they've been breached, and it takes an average of 140 days for that company to respond to it. Just dumb things. What should be done to get them to say, you know, to not click on things, you know, the social engineering side of things, learn better about that. You know, all these things that they can do, back up better, you know, back up religiously, patch religiously. They're simple things to do, but they're not getting done. So
the employee is the low-hanging fruit. So if you are able to get on a C-level a true understanding and call it enlightenment of how ultimately effective it is to roll out an a security awareness training program that actually really works. That is the kind of thing that gets you the best ROI and also very, very fast. Apart from the other things you need to do. Awareness training usually is not done right, just for compliance reasons. Yeah, the old school, okay, 20-minute break room session, checkbox, we're compliant, we're good. No.
Not good enough.
But awareness training is just one piece of the puzzle. You need to look at the whole thing, the fence in-depth model, where the outer layer is policy, procedure, and awareness. You have to make sure you have security policy. Out of that security policy flows your security procedure, and then you have to have the awareness to actually follow that procedure. So you train people to make it real to them. If they do this and they actually step through the training, what we generally find them saying is, wow, I didn't know it was that dangerous. How do I share this with my family? That's what comes out of their mouth.
Make them feel it and take it home too.
Make them understand it. Don't do, you know, stupid stuff in your lunch break.
And the thing, how's it going to harm me? You know.
Well, infect your workstation. Then, I still have 15 minutes. I'm going to go quick, do some payment, my bank statement, and they're using a debit card. So their bank account gets emptied out. If you make it real to them, they understand. You know, the end user is not stupid. The end user is just trained in another domain. And so if you are able to train these people to a point where they understand, this is really why I need to do this, they see the light, and this infection rate goes down rapidly.
Well, Stu, I want to thank you for being patient and hanging out with us here at the news desk. You're our final interview for the day. Really appreciate it. That was Stu Sjouwerman. He is from KnowBe4. We have just a closing comments for you shortly from Sarah and myself. We'll be right back with our final thoughts.